Hello and welcome back to the channel for episode 2 of my Saturday morning drive and talk, where I talk about anything EV, motor trade, or life in general really. Last week we spoke about electric vehicle range and what it means in the real world. So this week I thought I would take a look at the history of the electric vehicle. So how long have electric cars been around for? 20 years? 30 years? 40? 50? Nope. Try more like 200 years. Yes, that's right. Electric vehicles have been around for a lot longer than petrol-powered cars. So where did it all start? Well, in the 1830s, a Scotsman named Robert Anderson managed to put an electric motor onto a carriage. And it was powered by galvanic cells, so quite primitive batteries. But it could move on its own. Now granted, this was more of a party trick than anything else, more of a case of, look, it can move without a horse, rather than a viable mode of transport. But it was a beginning. In 1841, an electric train was also demonstrated. Now this electric train could travel 1.5 miles while pulling 6 tons. Now this actually alarmed the railway workers who witnessed the demonstration so much, because they saw this contraption, or this electric train, which was very easy to operate, and their jobs were to maintain very complex steam engines. They saw it as a threat to their livelihoods, so they destroyed it. Anyway, fast forwarding a little bit, 1859, the rechargeable battery comes along, which makes electric vehicles far more viable, so you can actually recharge a depleted battery. In 1888, William Morris demonstrated his electric car, and this electric car had 4 horsepower, a top speed of 20 miles an hour, and it could travel up to 50 miles. So about the same as a Nissan Leaf then. In 1898, Ferdinand Porsche designed his first car, and it was full electric. That's right. Porsche's first ever car was an EV. By 1899, 90% of all motorised taxis in New York City were electric. Not very many petrols and not very many steam-powered cars. 90% were full electric. And these taxis as well, when they're out on the road collecting fares, if the battery was getting low, they'd just take it back to the depot, unbolt the battery, put a fresh, fully charged battery on, and put the other one on charge, and the taxi would be back out on the road again. And one of the reasons why electric taxis or electric vehicles were so popular in the late 1800s, early 1900s, is that petrol cars were really complex pieces of machinery. They were noisy, they were smelly. Just changing gear in an early petrol car involved a lot of skill and planning. And just starting a petrol car where you had to hand crank the engine was actually quite dangerous as well. The amount of people that had their wrists broken trying to hand start a petrol car. So an electric car, incredibly easy to start. You just switch it on, off you go, no vibration, no noise, no smell. It was like a perfect scenario. By the 1920s, electric cars could travel up to 100 miles in the 1920s. But by the 1930s, the electric car was dead. It disappeared. So what happened? It was all looking so good. Well, a couple of things really. One, price. You may have heard of someone called Henry Ford. I think he pioneered something called mass production in electric vehicles. But around about 1915, you could pick up a Ford Model T for $500. The average electric car around about the same sort of time cost $1,700. So electric cars were very much a luxury, whereas the Ford Model T was just about within reach of more regular people. So petrol-powered cars became affordable. The other thing, range. Now, range wasn't so much of an issue with electric cars at first because paved roads were pretty much restricted to towns and cities. Roads that connected towns and cities were very much narrow lanes, dirt tracks, not really suitable for motorised transport. But as the car became more popular, road networks started to expand, paved roads that joined towns and cities, range became much more important, and the petrol-powered car could travel a lot further than an electric car. So if you were trying to drive between two cities, two towns, in an electric car, trying to get there and back again on a single charge was quite restricted. So petrol cars had a far better range. The other thing, infrastructure. Now in the late 1800s, the Americans really started drilling hard for oil in Texas. So drill, baby, drill. And petrol became far more abundant, a lot cheaper. And petrol stations started popping up everywhere, especially in between towns and cities. So if you're doing a long journey and your petrol car was getting low on fuel, you could pull into one of these new petrol stations, fill the tank up in a couple of minutes and carry on. Electric vehicles, not quite so easy. There was no charging infrastructure. Bear in mind, this is at a time when most homes didn't even have their own electricity. There certainly wasn't electricity between towns and cities, so nowhere to charge your car up. Also, the lead acid batteries on the electric cars took a long time to charge as well. So all of a sudden the petrol powered car was becoming a lot more practical. The other thing that really had an impact on the popularity of petrol cars over electric cars as well was in 1912 Cadillac brought along something called the electric starter. So that eliminated the need to try and hand start an engine and risk having your wrist snapped in two. So that made starting a petrol car far easier, pretty much as easy as starting an electric vehicle. So the big things why petrol won out over electric was price, range, and charging infrastructure. Sound familiar? So it's quite interesting, isn't it? I can't help wondering that if in the 1920s electric vehicles were sort of nudging that 100-mile range mark, if they had persevered and carried on developing electric cars, where would we be now? Because when the original Nissan Leaf came out in this country around about 2011, its range was pretty much the same as an EV from the 1920s. So where would we be now if they just carried on with electric vehicles, persevered? What would battery technology look like? What would range look like? What would charging speed look like? What would the infrastructure look like? Makes you think, doesn't it? But anyway, that was a brief history on electric vehicles, what happened and what killed them off. So I hope you enjoyed that one. It was a nice short episode, this one. But enjoy your Saturday, and I'll see you on the next one.